So one of the best things I ever discovered is the concept that not every tool is helpful at every stage of like the healing journey or even our life journey. And sometimes people will tell us things that they super think is helpful, and it's not. Because if you are, let's say, a child victim of abuse, or you've experienced relational abuse or like some trauma, something has happened, you are feeling just inexpressibly like you don't want to live, and then someone comes along and says, "Oh, be positive, be more positive," and it's like, what are you talking about? Like my situation, there's nothing positive here, or I am broken. I'm never going to get to be like everybody else. There's nothing positive here. And all messages like that do, for people that are in a different stage of their healing process, is be very triggering. And the reason is that when you are early on in your healing process, what you need is validation. What you need is integration of your reality with your felt experience. Trauma, like coping with trauma. A lot of people, like the normal human thing to do, is to dissociate from ourselves or to dissociate from what's happening or from other people because we can't bear what's happening. And so, stopping that crisis phase and reintegrating with ourselves, reintegrating with reality, really coming to an understanding of what happened to us, and why. So that early crisis phase, we stop what's happening, and then we move towards a processing integration phase, so that we can find certainty. And part of that is validation. So when you are expressing your feelings, you're expressing your experience, and you got people who are maybe, let's say, over here on their healing journey, over here in their life experience, and they're like, "Oh, you just focus on the positive." And it's just like, F y'all. And it feels very, it feels so invalidating. People in general don't have a great concept or respect for that life is a process, that healing is a process, that really, anything really is a journey, even like, let's say, love, people love to define things for us, to us, at us, and when you're early on in that healing journey, like, we are the ones who like need to be defining the things. It's how we find our center. Just rediscovering like us, ourselves, who we are, where we're at. The thing is, though, those tools are actually really helpful and important later. So later you go, oh, okay, the information I take in, the focus that I have determines my perception filter, which is reinforcing beliefs that I have. And if these are not helpful beliefs, maybe I need to change the information that I take in, change where I put my focus. And then people get on to the, the positivity train, like, toot toot. Here I am, let's do this, You'll know it's a tool for you if it feels empowering versus, like, if it's not a tool for you yet, it's not going to feel empowering. It's going to feel disempowering. So, somebody might be like, oh, focus on joy. And you're like, ah. But then you get this song from Demi Lovato where she's like, here's the lyric, can't see what I am, just what I'm not. And you're like, oh, Demi, yeah, I relate to that. Oh, I'm focusing so hard on what I'm not instead of what I am, right? What is that part? What is that? That's the beginning process of focusing not so intently on what's negative and wrong and being so critical towards ourselves. So we're not at focus on your joy. We're at, let me recognize I'm not looking at who I am. I'm looking at what I'm not. I'm not looking at what I have. I'm looking at what I don't have. I'm not feeling complete in myself, I'm feeling incomplete. And I am so critical and don't have compassion here. And it's impacting my experience in the world. And I don't want this experience anymore, and I'm going to shift it. So then we start going, oh, okay, so what can I do? The first step really is going, oh shit, I'm a human being. We're all human beings. Nobody is perfect. Nobody. And, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to fuck up. It's okay to be learning and moving and growing in progress and not perfection. You start to shift like this beliefs that we have. One thing I've learned about people that are kind of over here early in their process versus over here. People that are here have a very static view of themselves and others, and it causes a lot of pain because we have a belief about who we are and we have a belief about what another person is, and then nothing changes that belief. Our inner model of ourselves or another person is not adaptable, and so we're coming from this perspective of like, I'm bad, I'm broken, I will never be whole and healed, and I'm always going to be in pain, or I don't deserve things, or I'm unworthy, whatever it is. There's core set of beliefs, or nobody loves me, or I show up for people and they never show up for me, that kind of stuff. And then maybe we have a belief about a person that we started dating. We're like, oh, he's the one, or she's the one. I feel loved. I feel like I'm so happy to be with them. They're such an amazing person, And then stuff pops up, and we're not adjusting. We're not, adapting our model, our inner model of who they are to what's actually happening. So we're like 4 months into a relationship going, I don't understand like why they're doing this, because they're such a great person. And it's like we've ignored all of the things along the way. So when you have a very static belief system, or a black and white belief system of who people are, of who we are, it's not reflective of reality. It doesn't respect people, ourselves as human beings who change, grow, and adapt. We can't change people, but people do change. And we also, got to be better aware that like people are unfolding before us. And as we get new information, like, oh, okay, I'm learning something new here. This is important information for me to have. So people over here have learned to maybe, have discernment, be flexible in their thinking about a person, have not static thinking. Maybe you can instead of being black and white or good and bad about a person, you could think about them on a spectrum, like we have good and bad on a spectrum, and people maybe slide up and down. I don't even think that's necessarily the right explanation, human beings are a lot messier than that. So like it's probably more like a 4-dimensional, like you've seen 4-dimensional graphs, with the different quadrants, and it's like this axis might mean one thing and this axis might mean another, and up and down, and you kind of like move on the, that might be more of a multi-dimensional spectrum way to kind of conceptualize a thing. But truly, the other differences. So static ways of thinking, flexible ways of thinking. The other thing is people over here have external locuses of control. They are looking at things outside themselves that control their life. People over here are going, my internal locus of control of my life experience is me. Now, here's where it gets tricky. Because if you're over here and someone's like, no, your internal, your experience is internal. Like you have control over your experience in life. That is invalidating for here, the stage of our journey. It's empowering over here. This over here is when we need to hear it. Over here is like, what? No. Like, why would you say that to me? I've had somebody rape me, hit me, shoot me, murder my child. go to war against me, like when you're over here, you're like, no, I'm not in control of this. What are you saying to me? And what you need over here is validation that like the stuff that's happening sucks and it's not okay and it's unfair. And that's okay. It's okay to be over here. It's okay to be, let's say, early on or towards the beginning stages of our healing journey, of our life journey, of our human journey, and it's okay to be over here where you're like, oh, you know what? Anything could happen to me, but I know that I can handle whatever shows up. I am strong in and of myself. A lot of things have tried to take me down, and I'm still here. I get to choose. Right? Over here, somebody's telling you, you get to choose. And you're like, no, I didn't choose any of this shit. And over here, you get to choose. And you're like, yes, I fucking do. These things are tools. The one thing that, is super important to really pay attention to, something that I've seen very in common with both victims and abusers of an abuse dynamic. It is shown, I've literally never not seen it. Okay, which is a victim or abuser or both. Somebody in the dynamic is negative, judgmental, critical. Somebody, if not both persons. It's almost always 100% of the time going to be the abuser or the person harming or the person aggressing or whoever, right? They're coming from a place of entitlement, that they can power over people, for their own benefit at the other person's expense. They feel entitled to do that. And a lot of that entitlement is based on the primacy of rightness. They think they're right. So therefore they're justified in doing whatever it is they want to do. But underpinning everything is this mindset. We have got to be looking out for this. Because I've always been kind of like a bubbly, kind of positive person. And when I run up on those people, I'm like, he's just grumpy. He's like a grumpy old man. That's cute. Instead of going, he has a very critical view of people and the world. And I eventually will be included in people and the world. Those people will never be happy until they change their belief system. Because if all you are paying attention to, the only place you're putting your focus is what's wrong, how people are fucking up, how everyone's dumb, how everyone's stupid, that kind of mentality, right? In the beginning, they don't know you yet. And they're just like, oh, you're amazing and I want you. But they don't know how to nurture their positive focus of people. They don't have compassion for other people. And they don't have compassion for themselves, not really. But so when you run up on that person, and you're like, ooh, literally everything that comes out of your mouth is a complaint, a judgment, a criticism, Now, when we are that people, when we're in that place, and we're like, fuck everyone fucking sucks. And you encounter a person where every time you complain, they're like, well, it could be this other thing. And you're like, yeah, or maybe people are just dumb, So that's what it feels like to be on the other side of that. And you're just like, can you just not just like ride with me on this for a hot second, That's why I always give my friends, like the option, like, hey, I'm feeling petty Crocker for a hot minute. Can I be petty? And if they're feeling it, I'm like, yeah, girl, let's do this. And if they're not in that energy in that space, we're like, oh, you're like, okay, yeah. So sometimes you run up on a person and they literally interpret everything in the most positive way. And you're like, I'm not saying that at all. Why are you drawing that conclusion? They're drawing that conclusion because they do not have negative attribution bias. They have positive attribution bias. They also give people the benefit of the doubt. They're also, less judgmental. They're more compassionate. They're exhibiting all the shit that we should be doing towards ourselves. Honestly, you want to be surrounded by these people. These people, it's safe to make mistakes with. These people, will support you. And suddenly you're like, oh, I actually want to be like that. That's great, When you're real extreme though in the negativity, you're like, these people are idiots and they don't know reality and blah blah blah. Again, very judgmental paradigm. So, you know, a lot of self-development is really going, well, what's in my purview? What's in my control? What's in my lane? What am I responsible for? What am I not? So boundaries are talking about, you know, where are we responsible? Where's another person responsible? A lot of the abuse process is, you know, disentangling from certain ideas that we've, you know, been told by the abuser that things are our fault or not our fault. You know, we're like, no, this wasn't our fault. And then later on, we're like, well, how can I stop this pattern? You know, and so all of these messages can come at us at different times. And you'll know you're ready for a certain message when you feel empowered when you hear it. Doesn't mean you need to stay in that state forever, but like, you know, again, let's respect. This is a process. Everybody is on their own journey. But yeah, the problem though with that early on process, when we need validation and we chase it, we won't get it. It's like when you're like, oh, I need love, I need people, I need whatever, and you chase them, and like it's like the more you chase, the less it works. It's like this dumb paradox of the universe where you're like, oh, the more I want it, the less I get it. So like law of attraction people would kind of, you know, or spiritualism type people or whatever are going to say something to the effect of, you know, the universe is just mirroring back your energy. Or you're saying, oh, I want so much, and the universe is going to give you more of that experience of wanting. Like, oh, you want to want? Okay, yeah, let's do that, you know? So you never get what you want because you're so busy wanting. I can't tell you, when I was a kid and I would hear about like, you know, like Buddhist concepts of, you know, detaching and like, you know, not wanting and like, you know, I was just like, I don't understand. This doesn't make sense. You know, I deserve to be loved. I deserve to have a family. I don't deserve to be hurt. You know, it's not wrong for me to have expectations around that. It's not wrong for me to want that. And it isn't, you know, but, that it's a thing, man. People can tell you want validation, or people can tell you want love. They feel that neediness, and it's like, oh no, no, thank you. The needier you are, the less people are gonna want to show up and meet your needs. Like that's just how it is. The only time when that's it even works that way out with kids. You know, it works out that way with kids. Like the neediest kids are the ones who are like, oh, too. When those are the ones who need the most. Anyway, so when we can get in a space where we have a better understanding that we are all human. We are all on a journey. We are all just trying to like get through this the best we can. And then you go, you know, I'm starting to recognize, like, every time I hang out with this person, it's always fucking negative. You know, that doesn't, you know, sometimes to ride that train for a little bit feels really good. Like, you know, the haterade, you're like, yeah. But that's, you know, it's ultimately empty. You know, and also when you turn that on yourselves, it makes you feel bad, you know? Because nobody lives up to those expectations. Nobody. It's not reasonable to even have that concept that a person should or can, or that's a state that anyone attains ever all the time. You know, like it's a goal. That's what we're moving towards. When we don't make it there, we're like, oh, let me try again. Learning growth mindset versus a good bad mindset. Anyway, so when people are explaining to you their perceptions of things, they're really telling you how they view the world. And ultimately how they're going to view you. So a really good example, politics. Oh, guys, what such a fantastic paradigm test. For example, I have a governor in my state. The people are just like, oh, they're the worst, you know, well, depending on which side of the political divide you're on. And I'm looking at this dude like, I would not want this job in a million years. This is very hard. There are literally no right answers. I don't understand why everyone's so convinced that they know what the right thing to do is. Like, we're just trying to like mitigate damage at this point. You know, there's only so much he can do when there's a national situation that's very different. So if I run up on somebody who's so they know, and they're not able to kind of like see the other side, that gives you some really important information. Anyway, so one of the things that the reason I have this subreddit, one of the reasons why I do what I do is because I like to collect information and then think about it and process it and then like put it out there. So I've been working on like my own little deck of cards and with questions and things. And so one of the ones that I wanted to share is where we are giving our power lets us know where we're chasing validation, or where we're chasing validation from lets us know where we're giving our power. So if we're like we need our friends to validate us, that lets us know we're giving our friends our power, an external locus of control. If we're giving it to parents or people in the religious community, or I don't know, a job, coworkers, bosses, whoever, that lets us know internal locus of control. No, we're giving power to these people because we're like, okay, I need validation from these people. Now, I am not saying that that's a bad thing. I think that's where people really do some damage to people in their healing process by coming at it like real judgy, like, you know, it's okay to say I'm a human being in a community of other human beings, and I would like to be supported by those other human beings and get validation and support from my experience. I'm just like passing along. Maybe let's be aware that that's what we're doing, you know, and that at some point we're going to want to shift in another direction so that, you know, we're the ones validating for ourselves. Inner locus of control. It's a journey. Maybe we're not there yet, or maybe we're there sometimes, but not all the time. It's fine. Okay, another thing I wanted to share. Okay, another huge, super important thing is when we take in a piece of information, we need to both sides it. The first time this showed up for me in a really clear way was you Green Lizard Hands on his post about 1 Corinthians, you know, love is patient, love is kind. And what you Green Lizard Hands said was, you know, sometimes we take in that and we go, oh, am I patient? Am I kind? When we also should be looking at the other person going, wait, are they patient? Are they kind? So we need to, when we take information in, not just focus it on ourselves or not just focus it on another person. We want a more integrated method of bringing that stuff in. So I was watching a YouTube video where this lady said, she's like, well, where are you not showing up for yourself? And I was like, ooh, that's good. Where am I not showing up for myself? But then I was like, well, also, where am I showing up for myself? Like, there are two, you know, not everything is, you know, not everything has to be duality, but there are like two sides here. I don't just have to focus on what might be negative and critical. Like, let's balance that shit out with where am I showing up for myself, you know? So it's a really good tool, and it doesn't just have to be in one direction. We can use it in other directions. And we can also say, hey, where are other people showing up for me, or where are they not? You know, like, use that tool. Let's see. Yeah, another version of this was recognize where your foundations are not strong. Well, it's like, well, let's recognize also where our foundations are strong. You know, like, complete. We do not need to only focus on the shit we gotta fix. Like, there's stuff we're doing good. I remember thinking, you know, like, oh, I'm so mediocre. I'm just like this mediocre person. I'm average intelligence, average skill set, yada, yada. But people would tell me things ever since I was a kid, like, oh, you're such a good writer. And I just sort of was like, whatever. Well, like, in one ear, out the other, because I don't even really think about it. To me, I'm just doing it. It's not anything I really, like, care about. Other than to effectively like communicate information or an idea or a feeling or something, you know, like it's not even, I don't even care about writing. I'm more concerned about like the message or what I'm communicating. And then one day, sometimes I feel really special. Like I I was sitting there and I was like, yeah, I don't, I'm average, whatever. And then I was like, oh my gosh, my entire life, people have been reflecting something back to me that I have been completely ignoring. Now, this isn't to sit there and be like, toot toot, I'm awesome writer. This is to say, when we are, where we put our focus, what information we take in affects our perception filter. Our perception filter affects where we put our focus, what information we take in, and ultimately that determines what belief systems we build about ourselves and others. So I had this belief system that wasn't necessarily accurate. Because I had a poor belief system, I wasn't taking in, I wasn't giving credence to information that was in opposition to it. I'm mediocre, but people are telling me I'm an amazing writer. Am I an amazing writer? I don't know. I don't know that I agree or that I even care. But I wasn't taking in that information. I wasn't integrating it into myself, into my sense of who I am. And so for me to sit there and draw a certain conclusion about that I'm mediocre and I'm not that great and I'm just very average. Is that a helpful belief? Probably not. And it's certainly not one that was impacted by anything anybody else is telling me positively about myself, because I had such negative criticism towards me. So we're early on in this healing process, and people are like, be positive, and you're like, fuck you. You don't know me, you don't understand my experience. Now, I wouldn't say that that's wrong. People that communicate to people early on in their human process or their healing process, they aren't reflecting that they understand that experience. But when we shift our perception filter, when we change what information we take in, when we change where we put our focus, that starts shifting our beliefs about ourselves and others in the world. So being positive is it's very incomplete. It's more like, be compassionate, be less judgmental, start celebrating whatever you can find to celebrate. If you're really deep in it, at that point you're just looking for points of hope. As I put in another video, points of light, to let you know, this doesn't have to be life. Life will not always be this way. Things will be better. Anyway, hope that made sense. I'll talk to you guys next time.